Alright, g'day IB psychologists. In this video, we're going to look at how to study for paper 2 so you can get top marks. Right, your first step is dead easy. Choose the option that you're going to write about. Now, high level students write about 2 options, standard level write about 1. Now, within each option, there are 3 topics. I recommend choosing one specific topic to prepare for. Why is that? Well, for each option, 3 topics, there are 3 essay questions in paper 2. Now, there's going to be guaranteed 1 question. This is in the guide, guaranteed, no doubt, 1 question based on each topic. For example, abnormal psychology. You've got diagnosis, disorders, etiologies, treatment. You're going to get 1 question in the exam about diagnosis, 1 about etiology, and 1 about treatment. You only have to write 1 essay, therefore, ergo, you choose 1 topic, you're guaranteed an essay question on that topic, right? So I would forget about the other 2 topics. You might want to have a second one as a backup, but in a moment, we're going to look at why I think 1 is more than enough. Now, again, remember, high-level students, you'll do 2 options. The options are developmental, health, human relationships, or abnormal psychology. If you're not sure what options you're doing, ask your teacher. Now, the second step is you need to list all the possible topics that could be an exam question. So you've got your option, you've got your broad topic, and then under each broad topic are specific content points. Just list those all because in the exam they're just as important as each other. Right? So for example, I might choose etiologies, that's my broad topic, and under that there are 2 content points, prevalence and explanations. So now, right, I need to make a list of those. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. You also have to list the possible topics could be one of the 3 approaches, biological, cognitive, socio-cultural. So for the broad topic, e.g. etiologies, I might also be asked about those different approaches in relation to that topic. Biological etiologies, cognitive etiologies, socio-cultural etiologies. Or let's say human relationships, about personal relationships is the broad topic. I might be asked about the biological approach to understanding personal relationships, the cognitive approach, the social cultural approach. So therefore, I also need to make sure I've got those individual 3 approaches listed as my topics in relation to the broader topic. Also, research methods and ethics. So for etiologies, I also have to know what research methods are used to understand etiologies and what ethical considerations. Now, this is really clunky, and I'm sorry if that was confusing, but don't blame me, right? It's the way the guide is structured. Now, this is also why I would recommend choosing only 1 topic. Once you add those 3 approaches and the methods and the ethics, that's a lot, right? Just for 1 particular topic. If you're going to do that twice for 2 different topics, I think that's too much. I wish that we would go back to the old system where those approaches and the methods and the ethics were just asked in general about the whole option, but c'est la vie, no c'est la vie, alas, whatever, it's not. Anyway, you need to come up with a list of the topics. All right, the third step is for each of these topics, you have to come up with 1 specific example or explanation. For example, etiologies, 1 specific etiology, explanation, 1 explanation. I'm talking about etiologies of disorders if that was my option topic. Prevalence, 1 example of prevalence differences, and then biological etiology, an example, cognitive, social, cultural, 1 research method, 1 ethical consideration. Right, so come up with 1 example for each. Now, why have I got the / here explanation? In paper 2, for the options, sometimes it's not really clear what it is you have to know about the topic. There are examples like bystanderism. That's all it says. That's all the information we've got, just bystanderism. We don't know what we have to know about bystanderism. Now, if you come up with an example of bystanderism, well, you might come up with, say, Kitty Genovese. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that. That's more anecdotal, not really empirical. So with bystanderism for that topic, you're better off to come up with an explanation, 1 specific explanation of bystanderism. For example, diffusion of responsibility. So for some topics, it makes sense to have an example, for others, an explanation. If you're not sure which to choose, ask your teacher first or pop a question in the comments below and I can help you out. The next thing you want to have is the key study. Now, you need to have a study, at least 1 study for each example, and in fact, you might even have, I would recommend having 2 key studies per topic. So if you're looking at, say, a biological etiology of a disorder, I would have 2 studies that demonstrate that. Prevalence differences across groups of a disorder, 2 differences. Explanation for bystanderism, 2 studies. Sorry, 2 studies, right? So 2 studies per topic that's going to support or going to help explain each particular topic you're going to use. Research methods, 2 examples of a study that uses the research method. Why? Well, criterion C in the rubric is about showing your knowledge and understanding of the research. So I think 2 studies is helpful. Now, what you might want to do is go through and have 1 study per example. And then after you've got one for each, then go back through and add a second one. Because what you might find in adding that second one is there are some studies that can be used for multiple examples. All right, coming up next is the key term. Now I put the studies above the key terms because it's easier to show knowledge and score higher marks for using a study because there's simply more to write about. But the key terms are equally important. So for each topic you want to come up with one, maybe you're going to come up with 2 key terms. I wouldn't go for too many more than that because otherwise your essay is just going to read like a glossary of key terms, and that's not a great way to go about writing essays. I would also avoid using the same term for multiple different topics. For example, if you're writing about a specific disorder like depression or PTSD, don't write it down every single time. You know that that's just in the list of things you have to know about. So you want to have one specific key term or maybe 2 for each potential topic. Now, in terms of which key term to choose, this might be a little bit clearer after you do the next step. Alright, so the next step to do is to come up with a key question for each topic. What is it that you think is the key question you have to answer about that topic? Now, sometimes it's really obvious, it's really easy. Like etiologies, biological etiologies of a disorder, right? How and why does the biological approach explain one disorder? Simple, right? Bystanderism, that becomes a little bit more tricky. And some other topics, it becomes a little bit difficult. So do your best. Again, if you need help, your first port of call should be your teacher. If not, you can post a comment here on this video. So key question for each topic. Now, why is this important? Well, the key question isn't so important. You're not actually going to write that in your essay. But why it's important is it's going to help you come up with a central argument. So the next step is you have to answer your key question, right? How does a biological approach explain one disorder? That answer to that question becomes my central argument. That's going to be my central thesis in an essay that I write. Notice how I haven't mentioned command terms yet, and that's because I think there's been all this focus on command terms and all this focus on studies in IB psychology that we've forgotten about the concepts and the understanding that the key concepts behind all of these topics. What is it that we want students to go away with at the end of the course? I don't care if you remember the studies or not. For my own students, I don't necessarily want them to remember the studies, but what I want them to remember are the concepts that we're looking at. And this is why writing a key question here is really important. It's going to help you develop a really good central argument, and the central argument is key if you want to get a 6 or a 7. Now again, if you're aiming for a 4 or 5, you don't need to worry about these steps. These are for those of you who are aiming for a 6 or a 7. Now if you've stuck with this video this long, I reckon that's probably you. All right, the final step now here, if we think about what are the key aspects of an essay, well, you need knowledge and understanding. We've got that in our key terms and our central argument. We need our use of research. We've got that in our key studies. What's missing is our critical thinking, and that's the 8th step. Right, you have to add your buts. Got tangled up in my microphone cord there. You have to add your but. What do I mean by that? I'm going to make another video, and I've got a different blog post where I explain critical thinking in this one word, but essentially you have to show that you can argue against, you can point the holes out and find the holes and the limitations in the answer that you've given and the evidence that you've used to support it. For example, the question might be, to what extent does the biological approach explain one disorder? My central argument is the biological approach can explain the disorder of PTSD, and it looks at abnormalities in the brain, and we can do that, and here's my evidence. But then my critical thinking is saying, but, right? Sure, the biological approach is important, but what causes the biological differences in the first place? What causes brain abnormalities and brain differences that make some people more at risk to getting PTSD, right? It could be our socioeconomic status. But is it just the brain in isolation? But why does the brain link to PTSD? Well, possibly it's because of how the brain relates to how we think. Now, there's multiple possible factors there. Or I could say, but the study I just used to support that was a correlational study. But how do I know that it was the brain that caused the PTSD? But couldn't it be the PTSD that caused the change in the brains, and that's why people with PTSD have different brain structures to healthy people, right? So the but is your critical thinking, and this is really important. As you go through each topic, coming up with, I would aim for three buts per topic, right, that you're ready to write about. So what this might look like in your notes, I would take, because I like pen and paper, I'm old school, but I would take one piece of lined paper for each topic. I'd put the topic up the top, I'd put my key question, the key term, my answer to the key question, the study, the second study, and then my buts at the end, right? Now I've got a nice page of notes. Now if you were to do that for all the possible topics, for the options you're going to write about in paper 2, you've got a fantastic set of notes there. Now, I can't help but make a plug here. I know that's a lot of work, and you're best to do it by yourself. but it is all done for you in the revision book, or you can use the revision book just to help you out, to help with your notes if you're looking for the information. So there we have it, studying for paper 2 in IB Psych, right? Make the list of your topics that could be in the exam. You have to know what the possible exam questions might be. Then come up with the examples, the studies that go with the examples, the key terms, and then here you're getting into your central argument aspect, the key questions and the answer, and then finally your critical thinking. There you have it. I hope that was helpful. If it was, leave a like, post a comment. If you've got requests for other videos, you know, I don't want this blackboard to go to waste, so just write them down below. Cheers.